this year was our was the first time I'd ever been to Alaska, and it was really interesting for us because none of my well one of my overhead had been to Alaska once, but he was a crew member, so he really had no he was just there doing his job, and so we we had one of the old captains on the crew here. He had spent a lot of time in Alaska doing working on a wildland fire use module, taking his module from here up there. So we had him come and brief the crew before we went to Alaska on everything that they were going to be encountering, and then he gave the overhead a really good briefing on the logistical side and everything like that. So yeah, we fly up there, we get there. It was really interesting. They throw us out to this fire, and it's 12:30, 1 o'clock at night. Well, we'd been there for the most of the day, and then it's 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and the crew's still like plugging along, working, and then finally I realized, hey, maybe it's still light. And that was one of the weirdest things, is that we just no one said anything about, hey, we're gonna stop. Hey, it's too, because the other crews were still working too. We just kept working. I think dealing with the mosquitoes and the logistics and the camping and cooking your own food. That was some really interesting stuff for us. We had a lot of fun. It was definitely an experience I hope we get to do again. When we were going up there, we had checked the weather before, and it had rained for like 2 or 3 days. And when we got there, we had talked to a couple of the other crews that were on the fire, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it rained, but like that doesn't mean anything. Like here in a couple of days, we're gonna be rocking and rolling." I'm like, "Okay, perfect." And sure enough, it had rained, and then a couple of days later, it was super active and burning real hot, and then dealing with those with the spruce, really really explosive stuff that I'd probably compare it to like a southern rough, fuel type, even like almost, some of the little stands of black spruce that we had got into. It almost seemed like it would be like a Southern California fuel component, and when it would get wind on it, it would crank. It would move really well. We did a lot of. They told us when we got there we weren't ever going to use dozers, and we used dozers all the time we were there, and that was one of the. We did a lot of fire. We did a lot of burnouts, a lot of firing. Trying to get out ahead of that stuff. But I was really impressed with the fire behavior up there. I'd read a lot about it. I'd seen videos. I'd talked to people that had been up there, and folks told us, hey, just don't get complacent with what it doesn't look like it's going to burn that well, and it burns really well. And the tundra too was a trip. Having to, the crew. I didn't get to do much of it, obviously, but the crew did it. The crew mopping up in that stuff, and cutting the chunks of the tundra out and pulling it off was a pretty interesting experience for them as well.